once again, everyone, it is Weather for Weather Geeks time, Friday Eve. It is the eve of the start of November, and it's also Halloween. Hope you and yours had an enjoyable Halloween, and if you have kids and they did some trick-or-treating late this afternoon or early this evening, they stayed dry and enjoyed the warmth that we had. In fact, for the third straight day, we were in record territory, although we fell just shy of the record today. We were in the neighborhood, but 78, the record on Halloween, set in 1933, the official high at the Youngstown Warren Regional Airport today. 77. Now, that early morning low of 61 was a record maximum or warm low temperature for today's date. That will probably hold up because I don't think we'll drop below that 61 before midnight tonight. So we've been setting records on the low end and the high end over the last couple of days. How about that record low on today's date? 20, the early morning low on Halloween morning in 1988. Nothing like that coming our way anytime real soon. In the meantime, our rain gauge network looks like none of the stations really picked up anything measurable today. But in between stations, we did have some shower activity for early trick-or-treaters from New Wilmington over towards Grove City, and a few places in between. A little bit of rain earlier, but other than that, we haven't had much more than sprinkles here and there over the last couple of hours. So our forecast for trick-or-treat ended up being a pretty good one in that, this isn't any sort of a washout by any stretch of the imagination. Now, we are going to pick up some measurable precipitation before midnight tonight in most spots, but as of the issuance of the daily climate report about 5:15 this afternoon, we still had 0 at the airport at that point. We will finish the month well below average in terms of our precipitation, probably under an inch and a half worth of total rain at the airport for all of October. And it's no surprise, of course, that a lot of areas are still covered in the abnormally dry or drought designation here at the end of the month. We're doing best the closer you are to Lake Erie. It gets drier and drier the farther south you are. It's a moderate drought designation for a lot of Columbiana County, even a severe drought up towards East Liverpool, down into Hancock County, and into Jefferson County, Ohio as well. And, of course, exceptional drought conditions still noted in a lot of Appalachia and southeast Ohio, where it was an extremely, extremely dry summer and early fall season. As of 7:06 this evening, again, there's not much more than a spritz or a sprinkle in our viewing area as of this recording. More numerous showers off to our west, a little bit closer to our actual cold front. So this band of showers continues to push east. It's turning into a damp evening in Cincinnati and Dayton and the Columbus area as well. And we'll see more numerous showers around here in a couple of hours. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, midnight or so, and then showers will become less frequent in a hurry overnight as our front sweeps through. It's pretty easy to pick out that front. When you look at the temperatures this evening, it's right here. So you go from 63 still in Indianapolis to 50 in Chicago. This air mass out here is what's going to settle in as we kick off the month of November tomorrow. And speaking of the first month, or the first day of November, first day of the month of November, it is the first weekend of the high school football playoffs. And we have almost 30 local teams in the playoffs as the second season gets underway. It's going to be a nice evening for football Friday evening with dry weather, partly cloudy sky, temperatures at kickoff in the upper 40s, retreating a few degrees before the evening is through, and a lot of us will slip down into the 30s then as Saturday gets underway. We'll have, kind of a variable sky across our area on Friday. I think it may end up being just pretty overcast for a lot of the midday and afternoon in areas around and north of Route 224. The farther south you are, down into Columbiana County, closer to the Ohio River, I think the clouds won't be quite as persistent once you're down in here. But in places from Youngstown, Boardman, Canfield on north into a lot of Trumbull and Mercer counties, pretty gloomy looking midday and afternoon, I suspect, on Friday. And that will create a little bit of a variety in our temperatures. We may push back into the upper 50s down towards Wellsville, East Liverpool, whereas in a place like Greenville, Mesopotamia, Bloomfield, it may not be much better than 50 for a lot of the afternoon on our Friday. High pressure then builds in and gives us a decent-looking Saturday. We'll start in the 30s. We'll make our way into the mid-50s in the afternoon, and then we'll start Sunday bright and sunny. Clouds will increase as we go into the afternoon. Now, those clouds that increase Sunday afternoon might try to produce a shower towards 7, 8 o'clock, but the shower is a little more likely with the approaching warm front a few hours after that, into the overnight. And don't forget, we have our time change this weekend. Standard Time returns early Sunday morning, and the sunset Sunday evening will be at like 5:16, something like that. Then we have Election Day coming up on Tuesday, I looked back at all the records for presidential election days, not the kind of midterm election days, but presidential years. The warmest on record, at least since 1932. That's about as far back as we have continuous records for our area. The warmest, 1940, 73 degrees. I think we'll probably best that this coming Tuesday. It should be our warmest presidential election day on record, at least since 1932, for our area. It's kind of, there's no rhyme or reason to this. There's nothing to read into this, but it's fun to look at. As far as how this breaks down by party, it tends to be the Democrats who do better when it's warm in our area. When it's a colder election day or a wetter election day, the Republicans tend to do a little bit better. We've only had a little bit of snow twice on election day, presidential election day, since 1932. We had trace amounts on that cold day, Reagan's second election day victory, 1984, and then when Kennedy was elected in 1960, it was a chilly day, and we had a trace worth of snow across the area. So it's kind of interesting to look at this stuff, but of course there's no rhyme or reason to the weather impacting who wins and who loses usually. Turnout can be impacted by the weather sometimes, but so many of us vote by mail these days that I think the weather is becoming less and less of an important factor as far as the turnout for elections. Also, we're pretty motivated to vote in the United States these days, much more so than when I was a kid. I think a lot more people are voting these days than 20 to 30 years ago. Anyway, back to the weather. November 1st is tomorrow, and the Climate Prediction Center put out their initial outlook for the month of November, or their final outlook, I should say, for the month of November. Temperature-wise, another warmer than average month expected here locally, matching every other month in 2024. In terms of precipitation, now this is good news for a lot of the mid-Mississippi Valley, the upper Midwest. It's been pretty dry out there in recent times. They look to get wet, especially early in the month, I would suspect, in a lot of that area. I think our precipitation will probably end up, coming out on the washes pretty close to average in November, which would be an improvement over the last couple of months, which have been pretty dry. So overall, just a fairly typical November in terms of precipitation. But I do think that the warm forecast is the right one for the month. And speaking of seasonal forecasts and long-range forecasts, don't forget, just a reminder, my annual winter forecast, and we cover mostly December, January, and February in that annual winter forecast, especially in terms of temperatures. Our snowfall prediction will cover, from the first flake to the last flake, whenever those dates are. But the temperature forecast mostly focused on meteorological winter, December through February, Monday evening, November the 11th, 21 News at 5, 6, and 11, and right here online as well. And we'll even do a written version of the annual winter forecast that you can dive into and get even more details on what to expect. In the meantime, thanks for watching on this Thursday evening. Have a great rest of your night, a great Friday, and a fine first weekend of November. I'll see you back here on Monday for Weather Geeks.